First topic we're going to focus on, gents, is the Champions League knockout rounds, the last 16 stage. Let's look at the favorites to win the Champions League because we know who the group winners are, the seeded teams. And to remind you about some of the rules, you cannot play a team that was A, in your group, or B, from the same country as you in the last 16. So it kind of, maybe focuses on some bad routes for some big teams in the Champions League. And it narrows down a little bit, especially when 4 teams from England all make it into the last 16. So the group winners are Manchester City, Liverpool, Ajax, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Manchester United, Lille, and Juventus. Obviously, some of the big storylines are that Chelsea missed out on being group winners after drawing 3-3 away at Zenit St. Petersburg in the group stage finale, which was a bit of a mishap from them. Thomas Tuchel made a lot of changes. Some of the other big storylines that Barcelona, for the first time since 2000, that's 21 years ago, have not qualified for the knockout rounds of the Champions League. So that we saw it coming, but it's still a huge shock given all of the problems they had. And they had a chance, but Benfica did what they had to do, and they joined Bayern Munich in reaching the last 16. And some of the other storylines I think that's swirling is Atletico Madrid just easing through, Paris Saint-Germain looking pretty good. And yeah, the likes of Ajax and Real Madrid, sensational as well. So let's get into looking at this knockout stage and looking at the favorites. Nick, for you, is there one clear favorite at the moment that stands out in these teams that have qualified for the knockout rounds?
No. I wish I had a singular team to offer you, but no. The closest I come to it is thinking of Bayern Munich, just because of the experience they had 2 years ago. I think they have probably the best depth with respect to Manchester City, just because they have depth in attack in Tart and Robert Lewandowski just finishing things off. So the closest I would come is Bayern Munich. Then I would put in all of the Premier League teams. And after that, I think it's going to be a very fun little scenario. I mean, especially because we know Chelsea is going to have that sort of interesting draw that they have because of, they can only pick out 4 teams. We know that there are a lot of astute tacticians. We don't really know what we're going to see out of Manchester United yet because we haven't seen Ralph Rangnick ratchet it up for a big game. So I cannot say there's a favorite. I'd love to be proven wrong. I do have a dark horse, which is hilarious because they're not a dark horse. So maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit, but a favorite is very difficult for me to pinpoint.
Andy, before we go into your favorite, Nick mentioned there, Chelsea, they could have a very tough draw in the last 16. Yeah. They'll have one of Ajax, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, or Lille to contend with. And that, for the reigning European champions, will not be easy. So who are your favorite team or favorite teams that you're really keeping an eye on heading into the knockout rounds?
Yeah, it's a 50-50 shot for Chelsea there, right? That they come out with something just absolutely horrid or something that you can really live with, and you would expect them to get on into the quarterfinals. I think they will be there. I agree with Nick. You can't really say at this point there is a singular favorite. I think there are a few teams that, just given the way that they play or the experience that they have in this competition, have separated themselves a little bit. Nick was right to mention Bayern Munich there. I think Chelsea, as obviously the defending champions, and for all the same reasons that we talked about last year, defensively, so solid. They know who they are. They have an identity. They can control games in ways that a lot of other teams can. They did it all the way to lifting the trophy last season, and they've got a forward up top who, though he's not been healthy, though he's not been in form, at some point this year, Romelu Lukaku will have a red-hot patch where he tears everything in his path to pieces, and Chelsea are so much better off for it. So there's more to come from them. I also really like Manchester City, and I think the last couple of games that I've watched them in the Premier League, we've seen them go to a bit of a new level. And I think Bernardo Silva is a big reason for that. The quality of goals that he's scoring, the number of goals that he's scoring, the assists that he's putting up. He's the only person who seems to really have a chance to push Mohamed Salah for player of the season, whether in the Premier League, maybe Champions League as well. So I look at those 3 teams from the Premier League, and I'll even throw Liverpool into that conversation there, that the experience factor for them. And so I'm not writing off everybody else, but it just seems like the teams that know who they are and know the path forward to success for them and what that looks like. And I think for a lot of clubs, they just don't have that. And Manchester United being probably the most prime example of that.
Absolutely. I'm going to go with you guys as well. Bayern look very good. albeit their group really wasn't that difficult, was it, given the shambles that Barcelona have been. Liverpool, sensational, 6 wins out of 6, first Premier League team to do that in Champions League history, to be perfect in the group stage. Man City, I think we learned more about them in the group stage than most of the big boys, because they had to play Paris Saint-Germain home and away, and even though they lost away, they dominated PSG. And I really do just think they're built for Champions League success this season. They've obviously won the Premier League title a bunch of times, came close last season, and I just think that they can control games better than any other team, which really helps in these knockout situations. Elsewhere, I do kind of look at Real Madrid still. I know they had a couple of bad results to start the group stages, but with Carlo Ancelotti, he's been there, seen it, and won the trophy with Real Madrid before. And I just feel like there's kind of an aura building around that team. There's a few youngsters, but you still have the likes of Toni Kroos, Benzema, and obviously Modric just running the show there. And I still would maybe look at them as maybe a team that's a giant, obviously, for their history in the competition, but it's flown under the radar a little bit. So the Premier League teams, though, we mentioned it there. Nick Mendola, out of those 3, there's 4, but Man United I don't think we're putting in the favourite bracket, but or maybe you are. I don't know. What do you think about the Premier League teams in the last 16? Because nobody else in Europe is going to want to play them, right?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. The one thing I'll say for Man United, I would not put that in that group before, but do we get a team that will have a healthy Rafael Varane? Do we have a team that will implement and put Paul Pogba in a position to be the guy who was one of the best midfielders in the world and has won a World Cup? So I think we often forget about that. Pogba was a good part of a World Cup winning team, right? So I think the one thing I look at is Manchester City is playing a style of football with component parts that can be swapped out. They're winning right now without either peak healthy or peak on form Kevin De Bruyne. I do think they'll find some sort of reinforcement. And really, at center forward, and with Pep Guardiola, I do think you're seeing a man who is basically trying out everything in his playbook to see what his best thing will be and his best tool will be when he goes into that final game. Has he learned from his own mistakes in how he identifies how to go about a Champions League final, or how to go about some games where he outthinks himself? I mean, that is really one of the things that can get in their way. And the other things I'm not sure exist. The center forward thing is a real question, but if Pep goes out there and asserts his team on the game, they'll be the favorite in probably every 2-legged tie, and it'll come down to the one at the end as to whether or not they can finally get that honor.
Liverpool. I mean, I'm just going to say that Liverpool, for me, are the team that I would be most fearful of if I was any other team in Europe right now. The way they're playing, the way that they're set up for this kind of competition. I think they can just end 2-legged ties within 45 minutes at Anfield. If they're playing home at the first leg, they could be 3 or 4-0 up at half time. So, Andy, do you agree with me on that? Or am I maybe getting a bit too hyped up about after some of their results?
No, I think it's fair, because if you look at the best of Liverpool, it's obvious to see. I think of those teams that we just mentioned, they've got the biggest gap between when they're at their best and when they're at a version of their worst self. And we kind of saw it a little over the weekend when they played against Wolves. They can tear any team in the world apart with 4 goals and a half. They've done it multiple times this season. But when they're not firing, when they're not hitting the back of the net, when a goalkeeper is standing on his head, the way that we saw a little over the weekend, they don't. I know they kept a clean sheet. It was against Wolves. A lot of other teams in the Premier League, if they play that openly and that aggressively to chase a singular goal from 0-0 for 95 minutes the way that Liverpool did, they're probably going to concede. Wolves don't take enough chances going forward, I don't think, to really punish them. And so Liverpool felt a little bit comfortable in that situation. So I just worry when they're not scoring 3 goals in a game against the likes of a Real Madrid, against the likes of a PSG, a Bayern. How many are they going to concede? Because they are not great defensively. They're better defensively this season than they were last season for all of the obvious reasons. But I think they're still working back from that. I think they're still finding the balance just a little bit too. And who really is going to be, I guess, the second center back alongside Virgil van Dijk, because Joel Matip, Joe Gomez have both been in and out of the team this season with injury. So I just have a few more questions about them that I maybe don't about Chelsea or Manchester City at this point of the season. But we're one injury away to either of those teams, and then we can say the exact same thing about them.
Nick, Andy brought it up there. Some of the big European teams, Bayern Munich, PSG, Real Madrid. Who's more dangerous out of those teams? Because you look at the individual players they have. Lionel Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, Di Maria for PSG. Obviously, Real Madrid have Benzema leading the line, but then they have Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr., Eden Hazard, and the great midfielders. And you have Bayern with Lewandowski, and then just everybody else just feeding in the ball, and they're such a well-oiled machine. So out of those three teams in particular, those giants, and really among the favourites for the Champions League, which one is the most dangerous to these Premier League teams, do you think?
It's Bayern because I think they're best equipped to win a one-legged tie or a two-legged tie. I mean, going back to Liverpool, that's my big fear for them. Can they get to a final? Because over 90 minutes, I think they can beat everybody. I just don't know if their defense is going to hold up the whole time. And I look at Bayern Munich, and I just see the Klassiker this weekend. It was a fascinating game. Dortmund actually got a little bit screwed in the goings on, but Serge Gnabry's coming off the bench. They're bringing exceptional talents off the bench. They're sneaky thick and in depth. And what I love is in the middle with Goretzka and Kimmich are maybe two of the most overlooked megastars in world soccer. Just absolutely phenomenal players. And honestly, the way that they beat PSG when not at their best in the Champions League final was an eye-opener for me, because sometimes we forget with these Premier League and Bundesliga teams that they're coming from the best leagues on earth. And so sometimes they're a little tired when they get to these Champions League games, but when they can focus on just one game, just how special they can be.
Okay, so we're talking about the special teams there. Let's maybe talk about the slightly less special teams, but they could still go on a run. We're talking about the dark horses. Do we have anyone in particular that we want to keep an eye on? Because there's always one. Every single season there's an Ajax or a Porto or Monaco, if I'm going back far enough. There's always one team that makes a run. Andy, what do you think? Because I know you're not big on dark horses in the last 16 of the top competition of continental soccer in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Champions League. They're all special, Joe. They're all really, really special when you get to this point. I don't think any team outside of the ones that we've discussed already has a legitimate chance to win it. But I think if you want to watch a team that's been really entertaining thus far in the Champions League, has a ton of young talent from a region, if you're in the US, if you're in Canada, a lot of familiar faces and names, Lille has been a great story this season. They won Ligue 1 last season, beating PSG, and now they're in the Champions League. Jonathan David from Canada, Timothy Weah from the US. There's a lot of young talent. It almost feels like one of those really fun teams that kind of comes together for one season and one season only. They burn really bright, really hot, and then they get dismantled in the summer. Everybody goes to a new club. We saw it with Ajax a few years ago. You mentioned Porto, the Jose Mourinho run, many, many moons ago. It just has a feel of a really great story there. And so I'm really excited to see what Lille can do with what should be a decent-ish draw in the last 16 because they won their group.
Absolutely. Nick, RB Salzburg, Sporting Lisbon, Benfica, Ajax, any of those teams, really, do you fancy them to go far this season?
No. Can I beg you guys to consider a team at dark horse who's been to a Champions League final twice in the last decade but hasn't won since 1996, because they're a little bit fallen from grace right now, and I think that's Juventus. I think they're very good for a knockout style competition. They have 9 very good defenders can roll in. Their center back core is, even at with 2 really old players in Chiellini and Bonucci, they also have Matthias de Ligt, Daniela Rugani. This is a very good team with Paulo Dybala capable of doing the sublime. And I think we expected so little of them because Ronaldo had people under his spell, but he was finishing chances that we're now seeing other people finish. And if they can stay healthy at the back, if you'll let me call them a dark horse because of the tough season they're having readjusting to Max Allegri, then I'll tell you that I don't think anybody's picking them to win. And that's why I would qualify them as maybe a little bit of a dark horse. But if you'll let me, watch out for them.
We'll let you. As long as you let me say that Inter Milan and Atletico Madrid, I don't think they're dark horses. They're obviously huge clubs, but I don't think anyone's really picking them either. But I can easily see one of those 2 teams, if they get a good draw in the last 16, making it to the semi-final or maybe even the final. I mean, Atletico Madrid just have that habit, right, of just getting it done because they were not good in the group stages, but Diego Simeone's side beat Porto away from home and that knockout atmosphere. And they thrive on this. They absolutely come to life in the last 16 of Champions League. And Inter Milan were pretty good as well, even in the games against Real Madrid. They pushed them all the way. And it kind of gets overlooked how many good players they still have, even though they lost Hakimi and Lukaku last summer. So, yeah, we'll keep you covered all the latest Champions League news here at Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com. The last 16 games are coming up in the spring. We've got plenty of time to adjust, gents. Late February, early March, they'll all be going on in 2022. So we'll have plenty more chats between now and then on it. But right now, the Premier League teams are looking pretty. Everyone is wary of those giants. But Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and a few others will have something to say about that.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.